It was a strong way to finish out the year. What did you think of the push in the third period from your team?
I thought it was great. I mean, we were sleeping in the first period. We'd looked sloppy, disjointed. We weren't handling the puck well, and they were playing a real fast game, so it magnified some of our disconnectivity. And we spoke about it after the first period. We're fortunate to get out of that 1-0. They had some, grade A scoring chances on their power play for those. I don't know what it was, like 3 minutes of power play they had. But I really liked the way we came out in the second. Kind of get back to our game, which we've been playing, I think, for probably 6 weeks now. And then to your question, when they did make it 2-2, the bench was terrific. To get back to playing our game, playing your toes. They're kind of fluky goals. First one was kind of innocent. It was a wrist shot and it deflected. And then the second one was a rush shot that was, probably 40 feet away. I think it hit something on the way to the net. But they responded well, and they're starting to get, I think, mature as a group. I mean, we talk about this repeatedly. There's a group of old guys, a group of young kids. I think the older guys were able to communicate the maturity that they feel after playing 500-600 games, and I think that's it's being transferred into the young kids.
That was one of the highest scoring teams in the league over there. So how important was Lucas Dostal in this?
He was awesome. I mean, the first period he was terrific. They easily could have had 3 goals in the first period, but he was great. And he's I've said this repeatedly. He's mature for his age. He's, particularly in goalie's life. When you're that young, to have his maturity level, he doesn't get rattled. He's got a very high standard he sets for himself, even when he plays pucks. Like he took a couple whistles that prevented us from changing tonight. I saw his face. You could tell he was disappointed with himself, but you can see by his body language when little details like that slip. Like he immediately takes ownership of it, and you always say it's not the number of saves, it's the timeliness of the saves. And I thought he had some timely saves tonight.
You guys brought in Fabry and Dumoulin, obviously guys that gained your trust pretty fast. Was tonight kind of a game that shows like the spectrum of their contribution, particularly Dumoulin. Same to me, he had that player almost set up Leo. He keyed the rush on the Fabry goal. He broke up a breakaway. That just those guys' contributions tonight, I guess.
Well, I mean, they're both Stanley Cup winners, right? So, I mean, you couldn't ask for more stress and pressure if you're, as a player going through a playoff series like that. And that's what I say, you don't really learn things until you go through it and you feel it and you experience it, right? So they've been through all of this, so that's worth thousands of words, right? But they're both very efficient with the way they communicate with the young kids. They're very respectful. They lead kind of quietly, but you watch them play and everything they do on the ice is the right thing to do. And it's always driven by their compete level. They're both very competitive people.
What do you make of the defensive effort tonight, particularly around the crease, where it felt like a lot of sticks were getting tied up and a lot of the shots were coming from the outside?
Yeah, and we've been hammering that. Like we have been, particularly in the first month of the season, we were very negligent with the net front presence, and it kind of leaks in and out of games. But we've made it a priority. We've done some things in practice that I think transfer into the games. Ironically, the goal they got, the first one, hit our stick. It didn't hit their stick, but yeah, it's been a priority. And I think when Trouba came in, I mean, you got a big physical guy with reach. He's fearless. He blocks shots. He ties sticks up, and then you have him and Gudis in different pairings. You've got a lot of meat on the ice. That's intimidating. And I think, when you have people like that in front of your net, it's a little bit of a danger zone for the opposition to go there.
When you guys have scored 3 goals this season, you're 14-0-1. What kind of obviously it makes sense, like scoring more goals gets you more wins, but what is 3 being a magic number? What do you say to that? Right?
Well, I mean, you've been following us, and we didn't score a lot, right? And I think, one of the things that we preach, because we don't score a lot, is being diligent defensively and being responsible. And again, it goes back to, I remember coming back from that flight from Pittsburgh, and we were like 500, but we were getting bludgeoned defensively, and we had a really good conversation with the leadership group, and we said, let's just focus on these things and build our game from these things out, which were defensive things. And and we've said it all along, if you play good defense, your offense will grow from it. Now, there's no doubt that we could have more than 3 goals in a lot of games, but we've had a hard time scoring. And again, tonight I thought the power play was terrific. We had unbelievable looks. We didn't score. So when we get the power play kick, and I think you're going to see more and more games that are more than 3 goals.
The Vetrano Strom-Terry line's been a constant for most of the season. Frank's gotten some goals, Terry's gotten some goals, and now Strom's getting those. What have you thought of his play of late?
Stromey or the
Yeah,
line?
Strom.
He's skating like when he skates, like he's not as fast as Troy and Frankie. I mean, Frankie's an elite skater, and when you have elite wings, the centerman's got to keep up. If you want to get across the offensive blue line with some lateral opportunities, you better skate, right? So he has to keep up, and I think his game is driven by that, and he's gotten better on the face-off circle, which is giving him pucks back when they win draws. I thought he was terrific. The first half of the game, he was just okay, and then I thought he was awesome at the end. And he's a veteran, and he makes plays, and those guys they read each other. We keep talking about this, and you're trying to build, your culture and all that stuff. The culture stuff is usually about your compete level, right, and the detail that you're trying to play with, but it's really visual on the ice when people are connected and they trust each other, and you can see them. There's the unit of three, and they get the puck in the offensive zone. They know where each other are. There's predictability to the way they play, and I think when you have that, you play faster, and I think Stromey benefits from that.
What's Stromey's presence like in the room? He seems like a guy who can keep things serious when they need to be, but also lighten things up. Just what does he do, kind of his vibe in the group, I guess?
I've known him since he's like 19 or 20 when he's with the Islanders. He's a young kid like these guys are now, so it's unique for me to be able to talk to him. And he can see the game through their eyes because he was their age when I was coaching the Islanders back then. So it's easy to have a conversation with him, and he can bridge that, that gap between the young kids and himself. And I think what he's done a really good job is taking the coach's messages and to sprinkle it across the room. Like, he's not a rah-rah in your face type of guy, but he's a likable guy, and he's got a calmness to him. And he's also got a bite to him. We've seen him fight. He's fearless. So I think he's got a nice combination of like I said, toughness and wisdom, and I think communication skills to really, bond the group together.
With that line, you mentioned after the Edmonton game that you're using him sort of as a pseudo checking line, and tonight you get him up against the Hughes line a lot. What have you seen from them in that aspect in terms of limiting those top lines of some really tough teams?
Well, Frankie's a penalty killer, and Troy's an unbelievable puck possession guy, right? So I always preach that Stromey kills penalties as well. And he's got a lot of experience, right? So I always tell those guys, when you're playing against other teams' top lines, most of those teams looking for offense all the time. So if you really dig in defensively, you're going to get chances on the other side of the puck. And some of it's a sales job because some guys don't want to do that, And they've dug in and they've accepted that role. And I can't remember the first time I did. I think it was against Kopitar's line here in November. And they were outstanding in that game, and they've taken that. It's an honor, really, and they've taken that honor and done a great job with it. And I think now that Mac T's line is growing, there's a little bit of, you can give and take a little bit of that ice time with Mac T's group. So it's a nice luxury to have.
Okay, thanks, Crow.
Okay.